Okay, one of the most important things we did this chapter is understand the different transformations of your graph. Okay, different things that move my graph. So we can stretch, we can move up and down, we can move left and right, we can change the period length, all those different things are happening. One of the parts of the quiz and the test is labeling those things. Okay, so I like to go through this graph and make sure we understand each part. So the first thing we see is the negative. Remember what the negative does. It flips my graph. If it's a negative, we do the opposite. So if it were a sine curve here, we would start in the middle, and instead of going up, we would go down. The next thing here is the 3. That is my amplitude. That is the amplitude of my graph. Remember, that's how much you're going to stretch up and down. The next thing we come across is this 2. The 2 in front of my x is going to change my period length. Since it is a sine curve, normally I'm going to start with 2 pi, but in this case, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of whatever's in front of my x. So since it's a 2, I'm going to multiply by 1/2. So in that case, my 2's would cancel. Pi times 1, my period length is pi. The next thing I come to is this part right here, that plus 3 pi. Since it's plus, that tells me my graph is going to go to the left. Okay, and then this is what we talked about later in the chapter. We talked about phase shifts. Phase shifts are talking about going left and right, and they're going to change a little bit. They're kind of like period length. We're going to start off with that 3 pi. If there is anything in front of my x, like that 2 in this case, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, just like we did period length. So we take 3 pi times 1/2. I get 3 pi over 2, and it's going to go to the left since it was positive. And then the last thing we have there is the negative 6. The negative 6 tagged on the end would be my vertical shift. And since it's a negative 6, that means our graph is going to go down 6. So again, look at all the different things we did. Negative, flip my graph. The 3 changed my amplitude. Number in front of my x, it's going to change my period length. We started with 2 pi and multiplied by the reciprocal. Phase shift takes me left or right. Since it said plus 3 pi, it went to the left. And then we still had to multiply by the reciprocal in front. So 3 pi times 1/2. And then vertical shift is whatever's on the end. Okay, there's our first one. Let's look at another example. So here's my second one. All that different stuff put together again. So it's negative. So that flips my graph. The 4 is my amplitude. It's a cosecant graph. Sine, cosine, secant, cosecant. My period length is all a base of 2 pi, but we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of whatever's in front of my x. So we're going to multiply by 2 over pi. So think about what's going to happen there. I got a pi on top and a pi on bottom. Those are going to cancel. My period length is weird, but it is 4 here. My period length is 4. The next thing is this minus 2. That is going to be my phase shift. My phase shift. Since it's negative, it takes me to the right. We start off with that 2, and just like period length, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of whatever's in front of my x. So it's 2 times 2 over pi. That gets me 4 over pi, and it's going to the right. There's my phase shift. And then finally, my plus 3 is my vertical shift. Since it's plus 3, that takes my graph up 3. It flipped it. Amplitude was 4. Started with 2 pi, multiplied by the reciprocal. Phase shift, I did the opposite of the sign, so since it's minus, it takes me to the right. Multiplied by the reciprocal, and then the plus 3 is my amplitude. That's doing the different transformations of my graph. Take your time, work through those. You shouldn't be too bad. Again, comment if you have any questions.